Hello, everybody. It is Kelly, Therese, and Bobby, and we are here to talk to you today about charting a path to success, setting and achieving goals for your insurance agency. So I think we can all agree that that goals are just really, really, really important in all aspects of life, not just in owning a business, but they are important individually for people to definitely just get somewhere. We've heard that New Year's resolutions, most of the time, people, don't accomplish their goals because they don't write them down, they don't place them anywhere, and it's just like, oh, well, it's a New Year's resolution. So Kelly, what do you think is really, really important for our listeners to know about goals?
So they're not quotas. That's the first thing. I think sometimes people get really tripped up, like, oh my gosh, we're getting measured. And I always just say, well, without a measurement, you don't know when to party, you don't know when to celebrate, and you also don't know how to adjust. And so I think for many people, numbers and goals are so overwhelming because they make you feel vulnerable. Like, what if I don't hit it? Do I have the stamina to get through it? And if you stop like living in that scarcity mindset of, well, what if I failed before? I can't. What if I don't? Maybe you just need to say, like, I need to set a mini goal for 2 weeks. I need to ask one person a day for a cross sell. Like, I feel like so many times goals, like, especially as we get older, we're not as goal orientated because it's probably okay to keep doing this, but okay isn't good enough when you want to be extraordinary.
Definitely. And we all want to be extraordinary. How about you, Bobby? What is the one thing that you think of when it comes to goal setting?
I think that sometimes people can take goal setting and they get, what is the word that I'm looking for? They get discouraged by their goal before they even set the goal. So like we have to have, like, goals have to be these big, huge things, right? Like if it's not a big goal, then it's not a valid goal. And I think we need to remember that we need to be realistic in our goals. So I think sometimes we forget, like, hey, let's have a time frame. And for instance, I was just talking to an agency today and they're working on a cleanup project, and I said, well, how many things do we need to clean up? The goal is not, well, clean up as many as you can each day. The goal should be, we have X number of amount of things that we need to clean up. We need to clean up this many things each day and make that goal achievable day by day, as opposed to thinking about the end result of, we need to clean up 30,000 accounts. We need to take it bite by bite.
And that leads me to having SMART goals. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So your goal has to be achievable. If it's not achievable, it doesn't make sense because you're grasping at something that it's just, you can't achieve it. And we do our three frogs every day, and when I start to write the word blog down, I'm like, that's not even logical. Because, for me, getting a blog done in one day with all the aspects that we put into it, it doesn't make sense. So I always give myself a challenge. Okay, let's do 2 paragraphs of the blog or 3 paragraphs of the blog. So there's sections of it. So it's not just the word blog, because blog, in our sense of the word, we've got videos we have to do, we've got this round table discussion we have to do. So we have to make it achievable. And if we set ourselves up for failure when we put a goal that is too big and then we can't achieve it. So when we're talking about a business and an insurance agency, we also can tend to set our staff up for failure if we make those goals not achievable. So yeah, we believe that goal setting is a huge, huge, huge strategy. And leaders have to start everything ahead of time. Leaders have to get ahead of things, like us here at APP. I hate to say where we're at, but we're in the beginning of September and we're looking at our plans for the beginning of 2024 because we know that it takes that long for us to basically figure out what those goals are going to be. You can't just January 1st go, oh, here's my New Year's resolution. This is what I'm going to start today. It makes it hard. Kelly, did you have something to add?
I was just going to say, I think that that whole achievable thing, though, is a little bit complex, right? Because I've walked into many agencies where we tell everybody we're going to call every renewal and they're like, impossible. It's like, it's so I also think as a leader, though, you have to kind of say, hey, it is possible. Let's talk about it. It's really 4 calls a day. We're going to talk to half those people. And so I think, this goes into that whole idea of facts, not feelings, right? Of factually, what do we have to align to get there? And I think that that can be a missing part of what training do you need? What scripts do you need? Do we need to ease our way into it and do 1 and then 2 and then 3 and get up to 4? And is it possible to make a renewal call every single week and be perfect? I don't believe that that's possible. But I think you say we're going to aim for 100 and there are going to be weeks where we need to pile back, and that's okay. So you have to kind of be flexible in your goals. But I know many times, like I was just on a call this morning and, the commercial lines team of this agency cannot get to hitting their goal of just asking 40 people over 90 days about EPLI and cyber. They just have to ask. Now, do you guys think it's completely reasonable to have a 5-person account manager team in commercial lines over 90 days ask 5 people or ask 40 people as a whole team, not individually, as a whole team about cyber or EPLI?
Over 90 days, we got to assume there's 20 working days in a month times 3 months. So we're talking what, 60 days times 5. So I want to just do the math really quickly for people, right? Because I think it's important to understand if we have 20 working days per month and now we have a team of 5 and we're saying all we asked for was 40 asks. I mean, that's one person. We have an extra 20 working days. All they'd have to do is ask one person would have to ask
Fridays off.
Right. Right.
And also they're being told to ask. They don't have to sell it.
Yeah.
They don't have to bring the money in for it. They're just being told to ask. You know how much easier that is than actually writing a policy? You're just asking a question.
I do, but this is the team, right? Is saying we can't do it. There's no way. Well, and then I have another agency doing something similar, and it's like, well, all of our customers just email us. I've been taking a phone call in 3 days, and I had to say, you could pick up the phone. Because they said no email asks. It's real easy to just say, did you know you should have cyber in an email, but they wanted to develop skills. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I think when we talk about achievable, like if your team feels like it's unachievable, it is, you as a leader have to bridge that gap, right? Like it's on you to build the bridge and say, let's start maybe with, could we get this month to 10?
Well, and just like environment in an agency in general, if you want the environment in your agency to be positive and optimistic, you as a leader or a manager have to model that behavior. You cannot go grouchy around the agency and expect your staff not to be grouchy with you. So leaders have a huge role in goal setting. Number one, you have to set your own goals for yourself too. You can't just set goals for everyone else. So, and you have to have personal goals and professional goals. And get used to being in that state of mind where goals are important. Because you have, you're striving for success, you want your agency to succeed. So as an owner, you need to make that relevant and important and show your staff how important it is to you. And yes, there are going to be times when a leader can say, hey, this is the goal. And your staff is like, whoa, how are we going to get there? And you have to be able to drill it down enough to make them understand, like Bobby just did with the numbers, to make that goal achievable. And you have to make it time bound. There has to be a time limit. Just like valuing your time and your client's time, you want to make appointments and things like that. Well, you want to make your goals time bound. So what specifically as a business owner Kelly, would you recommend as like, where do you start? If they have no goals, they haven't set any goals, where would you recommend they start?
This is gonna sound really weird because I just like start with the things that are frustrating, right? Like start with the things that like they can do, and I say this all the time, like don't the first time in an agency that you outline the goals, some people will be trying to prove to you they can't be done. Like as opposed to put their energy towards hitting it, they will put their energy towards proving you wrong. Okay. And that's where culture and a lot of other things, kind of come into play. So I also think that, when you start on it, you start looking at it and the metrics matter. And this is why we're so, important on reporting. Like, is your retention on point? Is your new business good? And that's where you want to put your energy into the weakest metric that you have. And if you can do that, then you can strengthen that metric. But, just expect in many agencies, it's like a new business. Well, underwriting guidelines are so tight right now. What are we supposed to do? You find a way. We cross sell, we focus on life, we focus on benefits. Maybe we focus on only writing clean business and we really work towards going through our lost customers and unsold quotes and going through the cleanest of the clean and going from there. But, right now in this market, most of the goals you're going to set are not going to be easy. And so you have to get creative on it.
Bobby, do you have an idea? Like if do you look at it differently? How would you?
I mean, I think, tying into what Kelly was saying, I think accountability is so important, right? Like, I think if my leader is not following up with me on a regular basis, it's the difference between me buying a gym membership and just going to the gym and trying to see, progress and strides on my own versus going to the gym and working with a trainer and somebody that is holding me accountable for doing those things. And I think that's a lot of times where we see, leaders sort of fall down on goals because we don't hold people accountable, or we don't give them a firm metric to say X needs to be done by X date, and then they don't follow up and check back in. So that consistency needs to be there on both sides. That's how that level of importance drives that behavior, because we know if Kelly asked me to do something and it's due by Friday, I know she's going to follow up with me on Friday to ask me where that thing is if she doesn't see it.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And I think
it's out of love.
It is.
It's out of love.
Well, but I've made a commitment. I've made a commitment to you, and in turn, you've made a commitment to me. And it's about us keeping that flow of information, because in all actuality, we've made commitments to our customers. And so we need to hold those commitments to our customers. And by holding each other accountable, it shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. It should be seen as, an act of love, an act of encouragement.
I also think too, like I've seen this a lot of times happen. And when you're talking about goals, there's usually incentives tied to goals, right? Like that's another component of it. But I've seen that in many agencies, sometimes we will let ourselves down and let ourselves off the hook, but I won't let my team down, right? So if there's a team standard where everybody has to ask for a minimum of 5, cyber asks, I won't let them down. So Bobby or Therese doesn't get the goal. But if it's just me and an individual, like I get $100 Target gift card for doing it, I'll let myself down, but I won't want everybody else to miss out because I'm not participating. Does that make sense? And so there's a lot of psychology behind goals too.
Well, and I think in the first agency I was at, he wanted us to ask the question, do you rent or own your home? So he would make these printouts and he would stick them to our monitors. And we'd start out real strong because it's on our monitors and we see it over and over again, but then it gets to kind of blur in with the screen and you don't see it anymore. So you have to have strategies on what's going to remind you to stay on track, keep your goal going. I've got a goal right now with my, fingers, and I've got my lotion sitting here on my desk, so, you have to find strategies that work for you and your agency to remind you of those goals, to help you succeed and accomplish those goals. And like Kelly mentioned with incentives, incentives are great and it helps you get there. When you're trying to, break bad habits, that's hard to do. but it's accomplishable and it's all about mindset. Another thing you could do is, find podcasts about goals and share them with your team. We do that a lot at APP. We share, different podcasts about goals and goal setting. And there's a lot of great stuff in those that'll guide you.
I also think just to couple what you said is, we've had different team members at APP, throughout the course of time. For me to feel really good about the team, I like goal orientated people on my team. And I know that about myself, because I feel like, how are you going to help our clients if you're not able to help yourself? Right. So it's like, it's really hold other people's accountable. And we've had people on the team that are like, I feel like a hypocrite, I feel like an imposter because I'm doing these things and I'm not doing myself. Right. And so I think it's also having that self-awareness of like, who really is meant to be on your team. If you have somebody that has never hit or set a goal or stuck to a goal in their whole life, and you're asking them to do this, some people with the right coaching will migrate towards that. And some people will just think like, hey, I'm getting a paycheck. This is my job. This is where I need to be. And if I can throw a curveball in there, I think in particular, one area I see in agencies that I struggle with is when we don't hold producers accountable to their goals, because the service role has a whole spectrum of things, right? But the only reason a producer exists is to sell new business. They don't exist for any other reason. And if they're not selling new business and we're letting them off the hook, like if your producer is hitting 25% of their goal and you're not holding them accountable, imagine if your account manager was retaining 25% of the business. What would you do? You'd lose your mind. But it's harder when you're losing something than trying to gain something. And I want to encourage everybody, set goals for your producers and hold them accountable. Now, at the end of the day, you as the leader can say, hey, Therese, we set the goal. You tried really hard. I'm going to let it go this month. I know you're almost there. But it's not up to the producer to not hit that goal. It's up for you as the leader to modify it, not for them to assume it's not applicable to them.
And if you do that, and like we were saying before, if you do that too many times in a row, then they get used to the goal is not important because you're just going to give me a pass again next month. And so we need to have firm communications and understanding about what it means to hit the goal, what the timeline is. And if we're giving a pass, it's a pass for a short period of time because we've actually seen results, not a pass over month over month over month.
Mm-hmm.
And so some excellent news. And this blog is going to come out in November. Well, in October, we are releasing the 2024 strategic planning workbook for you guys to work on. So if you haven't checked it out, go back and check it out.
Mm-hmm.
It has a goal setting course in it that talks about the 8 ways agencies make money. Those are new business, retention, cross-selling, coverage improvements or upsells, book carrier management, expense management, fees, and firing unprofitable clients. So you want to go check that out if you haven't checked it out already. Thanks for joining us for today's roundtable about goal setting. We hope everybody has a wonderful day. Check us out at agencyperformancepartners.com.